dawn broke cold over Copper Ridge, painting the depot platform in shades of copper and ash. Sheriff Cole Hayden stood in the shadows, watching three men unload cargo from the 540 freight. Something moved beneath the burlap, human-shaped, bound. The lead man, Dutch, spat tobacco and grinned when he saw Cole's badge. "Morning, Sheriff. Got ourselves a problem here. Woman ain't worth the hauling." He gestured at the hooded figure. "Give you $1 for her. Save us the trouble." Cole's jaw tightened. 18 years wearing this star, and still evil found new ways to disgust him. He pulled a silver Morgan dollar from his vest pocket, the eagle catching first light. "Done." Dutch laughed, pocketing the coin. Cole cut the ropes binding her wrists with his folding knife. The woman's hands emerged small, trembling, work-worn. "Come with me," Cole said quietly. "You're safe now." He didn't know he'd just purchased the truth that would burn his world down. Before we continue, please leave a like and let me know which city you're watching from. Now, let's get back to the story. The woman didn't speak as Cole led her down Front Street. Pre-dawn silence wrapped around them, broken only by the whisper of her skirts against dirt and the distant whistle of the departing freight train. The burlap sack still covered her head. Cole wanted to remove it, but something in the rigid set of her shoulders warned him to wait. Dutch's laughter echoed in his mind. $1, as if human life could be measured in silver. Cole had recognized the brand on Dutch's horse, 3 interlocking circles. Marcus Webb's mark. Webb owned the Colorado Bank and Trust, sat on the church board, smiled at widows after Sunday services, and apparently trafficked in human cargo. The jailhouse squatted at the end of Ridge Street, its whitewashed walls glowing pink in the strengthening light. Cole unlocked the door, guided the woman inside his private office, and closed the door behind them. She stood motionless in the center of the room, a ghost wrapped in tattered wool and burlap. "You're safe here," Cole said, his voice gentler than he'd intended. "I'm going to remove the sack now. Is that all right?" A pause, then a nod, almost imperceptible. Cole stepped forward, lifted the burlap carefully. It came away stiff with grime and sweat. The woman turned her face away immediately, raising one hand to shield it. "Please." Her voice surprised him, soft, educated, layered with exhaustion. "May I keep my face covered? Just a little longer?" Cole retrieved a clean shawl from the drawer where he kept items recovered from crimes long forgotten. "Here, use this." She took it with trembling fingers, draped it over her head like a veil, and finally looked at him. He could see only her eyes through the fabric, dark, intelligent, watching him with the wariness of a hunted animal. "Thank you," she whispered. "You paid $1 for me. That's more than most would have done. $1's cheap for doing what's right." Cole gestured to the chair beside his oak desk. "Sit. I'll make coffee. Then you're going to tell me everything." She sank into the chair as if her legs had been holding her up through sheer will. "Everything is a long story, Sheriff. I've got time." Cole moved to the pot-bellied stove in the corner, reaching for his blue enamel coffee pot. "And something tells me I'm going to need to hear it." Cole poured water from the pitcher into the coffee pot, added grounds from the tin on the shelf, and set it on the stove. The familiar ritual steadied him. 18 years of sheriffing had taught him that the worst stories often came from the quietest voices. "My name is Mara," the woman said behind him. "Mara Catherine Brennan." Cole turned. She sat with her hands folded in her lap, the shawl still draped over her face. Only her mouth was visible, lips cracked from thirst, but the words that came from them were clear and precise. "I was a school teacher. In Denver. Before." "Before what?" "Before I witnessed a murder." She paused, and Cole heard her swallow hard. "Before the real killer decided to make me disappear." The coffee began to percolate, filling the office with its bitter warmth. Cole pulled up a chair and sat across from her, elbows on his knees. "Tell me." They've kept me hooded for 3 weeks, Mara said. "Moved me from place to place like freight. They told me my face would condemn me, that I have a scar evidence that I'm a murderess, that if anyone saw it, I'd hang." Cole's chest tightened. Do you have a scar? I have a wound, but I didn't earn it the way they claim. Her hands twisted in her lap. The men who took me said I attacked someone with a fireplace poker, that I'm wanted in Denver, that the only reason they didn't turn me in was because they could make more money selling me to... She stopped, her voice breaking. You don't have to say it. Cole stood, poured coffee into 2 tin cups. He pressed one into her hands, and she accepted it like a lifeline. I never hurt anyone, Sheriff, but I saw something I shouldn't have. A man was killed. I was there. I saw who did it. She lifted the cup to her lips, drank deeply despite the heat. And the killer has powerful friends, friends who could fabricate evidence, friends who could make a schoolteacher vanish and call it justice. Cole thought of Dutch's brand, Webb's mark. These powerful friends are they here in Copper Ridge. Mara's silence was answer enough. A knock at the door made them both jump. Cole rose, hand instinctively moving to the Colt at his hip, then relaxing when he recognized the voice. Cole, you in there. Tom Larkin, his deputy, young, eager, good with a rope and decent with a gun, the son of August Larkin, who sat on the town council alongside Marcus Webb. Cole opened the door a crack. Tom stood on the threshold, a basket covered with checkered cloth in his hands. Morning, Sheriff. Ma sent breakfast biscuits. His gaze drifted past Cole to the veiled woman sitting by the desk. That her, the one from the depot. That's none of your concern. Tom's jaw tightened. Cole, if she's wanted, she's under my protection. That's all you need to know. Cole took the basket. Thank your mother for me. He closed the door before Tom could respond. Heard the young man's boots retreat down the porch steps. When he turned back, Mara had risen, the shawl clutched tight around her face. They'll come for me, she whispered. Whoever paid those men, they'll come. Cole set the basket on his desk, pulled back the cloth to reveal warm sourdough biscuits. Then they'll have to go through me first. You don't understand what you're risking. Maybe not. Cole met her hidden gaze. But I know what $1's supposed to buy, and it sure as hell isn't someone's silence. Morning light crept through the jailhouse window, painting golden stripes across the pine floorboards. Cole watched Mara's hands as she spoke, small, feminine hands that gestured with the precision of someone accustomed to teaching, to making points clear. Her shadow stretched across the wall behind her, elongated and ghostly, moving like testimony made visible. Tell me about the murder, Cole said quietly. Who died? Mara set down her tin cup, the coffee half finished. His name was Peter Drummond. He was a surveyor. A good man. Her voice caught. We were engaged to be married. Cole felt the weight of those words. I'm sorry. It was 6 months ago, late April, in Denver. Peter had been working on a land survey for mining claims up in the mountains. He discovered something discrepancies, claims that had been sold multiple times, deeds that didn't match actual property lines. Someone was running a fraud scheme, selling worthless land to prospectors. And he found out who... Yes. Mara's hands twisted together. Peter came to my boarding house that evening. He was frightened. Said he'd confronted the man behind the fraud. Said the man had laughed at him. Told him to keep quiet or face consequences. She paused, and Cole heard her breath hitch. Peter wasn't the type to be intimidated. He said he was going to the territorial marshal the next morning. But he didn't make it. No. The word came out barely above a whisper. I heard glass breaking downstairs. A gunshot. I ran down and found... She stopped, pressing her hand against her mouth behind the shawl. Cole waited, giving her time. Peter was on the floor of the parlor. There was a man standing over him, tall, dressed in black, with a gun still smoking in his hand. And behind him, in the doorway, was the man Peter had confronted. The man who'd sold the fraudulent claims. Did you recognize him? I'd never seen him before that night, but Peter had told me his name. Mara's shadow trembled on the wall. Marcus Webb. The name hit Cole like a fist to the gut. He'd suspected corruption, but hearing it confirmed made his blood run cold. Webb was there, you're certain. I saw his face clearly. He saw mine too. And the gunman, his name was Cleet Banner. I learned later he turned that gun on me. Her voice steadied, taking on the flat tone of someone recounting nightmare facts. I should have died right there. But Webb stopped him. Said killing 2 people would draw too much attention. Said there was a better way. Cole leaned forward. What way? They had a woman with them. Stella Kane. Banner's accomplice. Pretty, cold-eyed. She smiled at me like we were friends meeting for tea. Mara lifted one hand to her veiled face. Then she picked up the fireplace poker and struck me, right here, along my cheekbone. Not hard enough to kill, but hard enough to split the skin. Jesus, Cole breathed. Webb told me exactly what would happen. They'd claim I attacked Peter in a lover's quarrel, that I struck him with the poker. And when Banner tried to stop me, I turned on him. The wound on my face would be evidence of the struggle. They'd say Banner was forced to shoot Peter in defense. She laughed bitterly. A tidy story. Believable. Who would take the word of a hysterical woman over a respected businessman and his hired men? Did you tell anyone, the local sheriff? I tried, and I went straight to the Denver sheriff's office, bleeding and terrified. But Webb had already been there. He'd filed a report. Claimed I'd fled the scene after murdering my fiancée in a rage. Said I was dangerous, unhinged. Mara's hands clenched into fists. By the time I arrived, they were looking at me like I was a mad dog. Cole stood, paced to the window. Outside, Copper Ridge was waking smoke rising from chimneys. A wagon rattling past on Front Street. His town, his responsibility. And, somewhere in it, Marcus Webb was conducting business as usual, counting money built on theft and murder. How did you end up with Dutch and his men? I ran. What else could I do? I had no proof, no witnesses, no one who would believe me. I took what little money I had and tried to disappear. She paused. But Webb has resources. He hired men to find me. They caught me 2 weeks ago, outside Colorado Springs. Said Webb was paying good money to make sure I never testified. But Dutch decided I was worth more sold than silenced, so they kept you hooded. To maintain the story, Webb's wanted posters described me as hideously scarred, a violent woman who attacked her lover. If anyone saw my face and realized the scar was minor, barely noticeable, the whole fiction would collapse. Mara's voice hardened. They were counting on people's imaginations, on fear of disfigurement, on the assumption that a marked woman must be guilty of something. Cole turned back to her. Morning light fell full on her veiled form now, illuminating the threadbare shawl, the tattered wool dress beneath. She looked small, exhausted, and utterly determined. I need you to understand something. Sheriff, Mara said, Marcus Webb owns half this territory. He has judges in his pocket, marshals on his payroll, politicians who owe him favors. If you protect me, he'll destroy you. He'll take your badge, your reputation, everything you've built. Let him try. I'm serious. This isn't some drifter causing trouble. This is power. Real power. The kind that rewrites truth. Cole crossed to his desk, pulled open the bottom drawer, and retrieved a battered leather journal. His case notes from 2 years of watching, suspecting, documenting irregularities in Webb's business dealings. Nothing concrete enough to act on. Until now. I've known something was wrong with Webb for a long time, he said. Couldn't prove it. Couldn't even articulate what felt off. But you're the proof I've been waiting for. I'm a witness. That's not the same as proof. It's a start. Cole closed the journal, met her hidden gaze. You'll stay here today, tonight. I'll move you somewhere safer. My house. Probably. Can't keep you in a jail cell that would just confirm you're a prisoner. Sheriff. Cole. My name's Cole Hayden. Cole. She tested the name. You're making a mistake. Probably. He smiled grimly. But it's the right kind of mistake. The kind a man can live with. He paused. How old are you? Miss Brennan. 28. And it's just Mara. I think we're past formalities. Mara. Then, Cole picked up the basket of biscuits, offered her one. Eat. You look like you haven't had a decent meal in weeks. She took the biscuit with trembling fingers, and for the first time since the burlap sack came off, Cole heard something other than fear in her voice, something that might have been hope. Thank you, she whispered. Outside. A bell rang the bank opening for business, Marcus Webb's bank. Cole looked toward the sound, jaw set. The fight was coming. He could feel it like a storm building on the horizon. But for now, in this small office with morning light streaming through the window, he'd given one woman back her voice. That was worth whatever price he'd pay. The noon sun beat down on Copper Ridge when Marcus Webb arrived at the jailhouse. Cole heard the footsteps on the porch measured, confident. The tread of a man who owned half the buildings he passed. He'd sent Mara into the back room, the small storage area where he kept old case files and confiscated property. She'd gone without protest, understanding the necessity of invisibility. Webb knocked twice, then entered without waiting for permission. That told Cole everything about how the banker viewed authority his own took precedence. Sheriff Hayden. Webb removed his hat, revealing silver-threaded dark hair pomaded smooth. He wore a broadcloth frock coat despite the October heat, charcoal gray with velvet lapels. A gold Albert watch chain stretched across his vest, an elk tooth fob dangling from it like a trophy. Hope I'm not interrupting official business. Council business. Cole remained seated behind his desk, forcing Webb to stand. A small power play, but one that registered in the banker's eyes. Just checking in. Heard there was some trouble at the depot this morning. Webb's gaze swept the office, the empty cells visible through the doorway, the coffee pot on the stove, the extra tin cup on the desk. Dutch Keller mentioned you were there early. Dutch Keller's a known trafficker. You keeping company with men like that. Marcus, Webb smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Dutch supplies my ranch with feed goods. Can't control who a man does business with on the side. He moved to the horsehair settee against the wall, sat without invitation. He seemed upset. Said you interfered with his cargo. His cargo was human. I interfered with a crime. Ah. Webb pulled out a silver case, extracted a hand-rolled cigarette wrapped in rice paper. He lit it with a match struck against his boot heel. And this human cargo, where is she now? Cole kept his expression neutral. Moved on, gave her train fare to Colorado Springs. Figured she'd had enough trouble. Generous of you. Webb exhaled smoke toward the ceiling. Thing is, I've been hearing about a woman who might have passed through our area. Dangerous woman, according to the Denver authorities. Wanted for murder. He reached inside his coat, produced a folded telegram. This came through this morning. Thought you should see it. Cole took the telegram, scanned it quickly. The language was official, the format correct. But something felt wrong. The sending marshal's name, Harold Sykes, wasn't one Cole recognized from his correspondence with Denver law enforcement. And the description was oddly vague. Female, age 25 to 30, brown hair, scarred face, extremely dangerous. Approach with caution. Interesting, Cole said, handing it back. But like I said, the woman I encountered this morning is already gone. Webb's left hand trembled slightly as he took the telegram, a barely perceptible shake that he quickly controlled. You're certain because the reward for her capture is substantial. $500. That's a lot of money for a small-town sheriff. I'm certain. Cole met Webb's gaze steadily. Anything else I can help you with? Marcus. The banker stood, smoothed his coat. Just doing my civic duty, keeping our town safe. He moved toward the door, paused with his hand on the frame. You know, Cole, You've been sheriff here for a long time. 18 years, isn't it? That's a legacy worth protecting. Be a shame if something jeopardized it. Is that a threat? That's friendly advice. Webb smiled again, and this time Cole saw the steel beneath the genteel exterior. From one community leader to another. After Webb left, Cole remained at his desk, listening to the banker's footsteps fade down the street. He moved to the window, watched Webb cross toward the Colorado Bank and Trust. The man glanced back twice, once at the jailhouse door, once at the window where Cole stood, measuring, calculating, the look of a man assessing obstacles. Cole waited until Webb disappeared into the bank before calling softly. He's gone. Mara emerged from the storage room, the shawl still draped over her face. You handled that well. He knows you're here, or suspects it. Of course he does. Dutch would have told him immediately. She moved to the window, careful to stay out of sight. The telegram was real. Format looked right, but the details were wrong. No legitimate marshal would send something that vague. And the reward amount, that's personal money, not government bounty. Cole turned to her. He's trying to make this official. Make you a criminal worth hunting. He's been doing that since Denver. Mara's voice was bitter. Public perception is everything to Marcus Webb. He doesn't just want me dead, he wants me discredited first. That way, even if I somehow managed to testify, no one would believe me. Tell me more about him. About Denver. Mara moved to the settee where Webb had sat, as if reclaiming the space. Peter discovered the fraud in March. He'd been hired to survey mining claims in Clear Creek County, legitimate work from the territorial office. But when he checked Webb's filed claims against actual property lines, nothing matched. Claims overlapped, boundaries shifted. Entire sections of land that didn't exist were being sold to prospectors for hundreds of dollars each. How much money are we talking about? Thousands, maybe tens of thousands. Over the years, Webb had been running the scheme. She paused. Peter calculated at least 50 fraudulent sales, families investing their life savings in worthless dirt. Cole thought of the families in Copper Ridge who'd taken loans from Webb's bank, the miners who'd bought equipment on credit, the ranchers who'd mortgaged their land. How deep did the corruption run? Peter confronted Webb at the surveyor's office in Denver. Mara continued. April 23rd. I remember because it was my birthday. Peter came to my boarding house afterward, shaken. Said Webb had laughed. Actually laughed. Said surveyors came and went. But money talked louder than maps. And that night, Peter wouldn't let it go. He was going to the territorial marshal the next morning with his evidence, all his notes, his compass with the coordinates, his calculations, but Webb couldn't allow that. Her hands twisted in her lap. They came that night. Cleet Banner shot Peter in my boarding house parlor. One bullet, clean through the heart. Professional. Then Stella Kane Banner's woman, she struck me with the poker. Precise, calculated. Just enough to scar, but not to kill. Cole moved to his desk, pulled out the leather-bound ledger where he kept his notes. I've been tracking Webb's business dealings for 2 years. Nothing I could prove. Just irregularities, loans that disappeared from records, property transfers that didn't make sense. A man named Henderson who complained about a bad mining claim found dead in a ravine 3 months later. They called it an accident. It wasn't. I know. Cole closed the ledger. But knowing and proving are different things. That's why I'm still alive. Webb knows I know, but without proof. My testimony is just the ravings of a desperate woman, especially now that he's built this narrative about me being scarred and violent. She laughed bitterly. Brilliant, really. Turn the victim into the villain. Make people afraid to even look at her. How many others? Cole asked quietly. How many people has Webb destroyed? I don't know. Peter might have been the only one who pieced together the full scope. She stood, moved to the window again. But you need to understand, Webb doesn't work alone. He has connections. Judge Halloran in Denver signed off on those fraudulent deeds. Deputy Marshal Sykes looks the other way when Webb's men operate. And here in Copper Ridge, who do you think sits on your town council? Webb's on the council. So is August Larkin, Tom's father, and Reverend Michaels, and... Cole stopped, the realization settling like lead in his gut. Most of them owe Webb money. Loans, mortgages, business credit. Exactly. Webb doesn't just have influence. He has leverage. Financial pressure that makes good men do bad things. Mara turned from the window. That's what you're up against. Cole. Not just one corrupt banker, but an entire system built to protect him. Cole looked at his badge on the desk, five-pointed star, nickel-plated, worn smooth from 18 years of wear. He'd sworn an oath when they pinned it on him. To protect, to serve justice, to stand between the innocent and those who would harm them, even when it cost everything. Then we'll have to break the system, he said quietly, and build a new one. There was something almost like hope in Mara's voice. If we have to. Cole picked up his badge, pinned it back on his vest. But first, we need to get you somewhere safer than this jailhouse. Come nightfall, I'm taking you to my house on Ridge Street. It's small, but it's defensible. And unlike here, Webb doesn't have keys to the door. Your house. Mara's tone changed, uncertain. Cole, I can't. That's your private... It's the safest place I can offer. He met her hidden gaze. And after this morning, I think we both know Webb isn't going to stop with polite threats and fake telegrams. He's going to escalate. When he does, I need you somewhere I can protect you. Mara was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. All right. But Cole, you need to know what you're risking. This fight won't just cost you your badge. It might cost you your life. Some things are worth dying for. Are you always this stubborn? Only when it matters. Cole smiled grimly. Besides, I already paid $1 for you. Hate to waste the investment. Despite everything. Mara laughed, a sound like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. $1. Best money you ever spent. Ask me when this is over. Outside, the bank bell rang, marking noon. The sound drifted through the window, ordinary and ominous all at once. The fight was coming. Cole was ready. Cole waited until full dark before moving Mara. They left through the jailhouse back door, took the alley behind the Mercantile, and emerged on Ridge Street 3 blocks from the main thoroughfare. His house sat at the end of the block, a small frame structure with whitewashed walls and a steep pitched roof. Nothing fancy, but it had been home for 20 years. It's not much, Cole said, unlocking the door. It's perfect, Mara replied softly. Inside, a single large room served as kitchen and parlor both, with a smaller bedroom through a doorway in the back. Braided rag rugs covered the pine floors, Ellen's handiwork, each circle of fabric a memory. Gingham curtains hung at the windows, faded now but still cheerful in the lamplight. A cast-iron stove dominated one corner, its surface dusty from disuse. Cole usually ate at the boarding house rather than cook for himself. Mara stood in the center of the room, slowly turning, taking it all in. Her gaze fell on the tin-type photographs arranged on a shelf beside the stove, oval frames holding images of a woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Your wife? Mara asked. Ellen. She passed 3 years ago. Pneumonia. Cole hung his hat on the peg by the door, felt the familiar weight of grief settle over him. Caught cold in January, gone by February. Doc Mercer did everything he could. I'm sorry. Mara moved closer to the photographs, studying them with the respectful attention one gives to the beloved dead. She was beautiful. She was good. That's better than beautiful. Cole moved to the stove, began building a fire from kindling in the wood box. She'd have liked you, I think. Ellen always had a soft spot for people who needed defending. Is that what I am? Someone who needs defending? Right now. Yes. Cole struck a match, held it to the kindling until flames caught. But I suspect that's temporary. You strike me as the type who does just fine defending herself when given half a chance. Mara laughed quietly. I was a school teacher. We learned to handle difficult situations. Rowdy students more challenging than murderous bankers. At least students respond to reason occasionally. Cole smiled despite himself. He added larger pieces of wood to the fire, adjusted the damper. There's food in the pantry: cornmeal, beans, some preserves. Ellen always kept the pantry stocked. I've been... He paused, realizing he'd been maintaining her supplies out of habit, as if she might walk through the door any moment and need to make supper. Well, there's food if you're hungry. Let me cook. Mara moved towards the pantry, a small closet with shelves lined in oilcloth. Please, I need to do something useful. I felt like freight for so long. Cole wanted to protest, to say she was his guest and shouldn't work, but he saw the need in her posture, the desire to reclaim normalcy through ordinary tasks. All right, I'll be at the table if you need anything. He settled at the small kitchen table, pulled out his case journal, and began reading through 2 years of notes, dates, names, inconsistencies. A rancher named Colby who'd bought a prime grazing section from Webb, only to discover it was mostly ravine and scrub. A widow whose husband's mining claim vanished from county records after his death. Small injustices, easy to dismiss individually, but together, they painted a picture of systematic corruption. Mara worked quietly at the stove, finding pans, measuring cornmeal from the muslin sack in the pantry, checking the beans Cole had soaking in a crock. She moved with the efficiency of someone accustomed to simple cooking, someone who'd made meals after long days teaching children their letters. The domesticity of it, the soft sounds of cooking, the woman moving in his kitchen. The warmth of the stove struck Cole with unexpected force. This was what he'd lost when Ellen died. Not just her presence, but the sense of home as something lived in rather than merely inhabited. You've documented everything, Mara said, glancing at his journal as she stirred beans in the pot. That's good. Evidence. Circumstantial evidence. Nothing that would hold up in court. Cole closed the journal, rubbed his eyes. I was waiting for something concrete. A witness, documents, proof that couldn't be dismissed. And now you have me. Now I have you. He looked up, met her veiled gaze. Which means we need a plan. Can't keep you hidden in Copper Ridge forever. Webb's already suspicious. By tomorrow, the whole town will know you're here. What are our options? Cole leaned back in his chair, considering. Best choice would be to get you to Denver, to the real territorial marshal, not the corrupt deputy on Webb's payroll. Someone with authority over local judges and sheriffs. Someone Webb can't buy. How do we reach Denver without Webb knowing? That's the problem. Can't take the train too public. Can't send a telegram. Boyd Sims, the telegrapher, married Webb's sister. He'd have the message read before the ink dried. Cole drummed his fingers on the table. We'd have to go overland. 3 days by horse, 2 if we pushed hard. And leave the town undefended while we travel. Tom could manage for a few days. He's young, but he's capable. Even as Cole said it, doubt crept in. Tom's father sat on the council. Tom himself had seemed uncomfortable this morning, questioning Cole's decision to help Mara. How much pressure could the young deputy withstand before loyalty? Cracked Mara dished beans onto 2 tin plates, added squares of cornbread still steaming from the pan. She brought them to the table, sat across from Cole. Through the window behind her, sunset painted the sky in shades of copper and rose. The light caught her silhouette, and Cole saw her hand reach out, almost unconsciously, to touch the gingham curtains. The gesture was so small, so human, a woman touching fabric that another woman's hands had sewn, connecting across the distance of death to something domestic and gentle. Mara's shoulders sagged, and Cole realized she was crying silently behind the veil. I'm sorry, she whispered. It's just I haven't seen a real home in so long. Not since Peter died, since everything fell apart. I've been running, hiding, existing like an animal, and this, she gestured at the simple room, the meal, the curtains. This is what they took from me, the possibility of ordinary life. Cole reached across the table, carefully, giving her time to pull away if she wished. She didn't. His rough, scarred hand covered her smaller one, and they sat like that while the sunset faded and the lamp's glow became the only light. "We'll get it back," Cole said. "Your life, your name, your future, that's what we're fighting for. At what cost to you? I've been sheriff for 18 years, seen a lot of things, done some good, failed at other times. But if I walk away from this from you, from the truth about Webb, then every year I wore this badge meant nothing." He squeezed her hand gently. "Some fights choose you. This one chose me the moment I paid that $1. They ate in comfortable silence. The beans simple but filling. The cornbread sweet with a hint of honey. Outside, lamps began lighting in windows up and down Ridge Street. Normal evening routines, families gathering for supper, children being called inside, the town settling into night. But Cole knew the normalcy was illusion. By morning, word would spread. The sheriff had taken a strange woman into his house. Questions would be asked. Pressure would be applied. The fight was coming closer with every hour. After supper, Mara insisted on washing the dishes while Cole added wood to the stove. He offered her the bedroom. She refused, saying she'd sleep on the horsehair settee in the parlor. They compromised she'd take the bed. He'd sleep in the chair with his Winchester across his lap. "You think they'll come tonight?" Mara asked, drying the last plate. "No. Webb's too smart for direct violence. He'll use other methods first." Cole checked the loads in his Colt, set it on the table within reach. "But I don't believe in taking chances." Mara paused at the bedroom door, turned back. "Cole, thank you for seeing me as a person, not as a problem or a piece of evidence or a thing to be moved around. You saw me. You made it easy. That voice of yours, it's hard to ignore. My soft voice." There was amusement in her tone. Soft, but weighted. Like every word's been held back so long it comes out dense with truth. He met her hidden eyes. "That's a powerful thing, Mara. Don't underestimate it." She nodded and disappeared into the bedroom, closing the door softly behind her. Cole settled into the chair, Winchester across his knees, and watched the lamp's flame dance in its milk glass shade. On the shelf, Ellen's photograph seemed to watch him with approval. He'd made his choice. Now came the consequences. Sunday morning broke clear and cold. Cole woke in the chair, neck stiff, Winchester still across his lap. Through the window, he saw frost silvering the grass, the first hard freeze of autumn. He checked on Mara still sleeping behind the closed bedroom door, then washed at the basin, changed into his Sunday broadcloth suit. The dark wool felt constraining after a week in work clothes, but some rituals demanded respect. Church was one of them, even when you knew the congregation had already judged you. The First Methodist Church of Copper Ridge sat at the corner of Front and Oak, its white steeple visible from every part of town. Cole arrived early, took his usual pew near the back. The hymnal songs of Zion, leather-bound and gilt-edged, felt familiar in his hands. Comfort in routine. But comfort died when the congregation began arriving. Families Cole had known for years filed past without meeting his eyes. Martha Henderson, whose husband had died in that suspicious ravine accident, turned her face away. The Colby brothers, ranchers Webb had cheated, found seats on the opposite side of the church. Even young couples Cole had watched court and marry chose distant pews. Only one man acknowledged him. Doc Mercer, silver-haired and dignified in a black coat that had seen better days, paused at Cole's pew and nodded a small gesture, but waited with solidarity. Then he moved on to his own seat near the front, and Cole was alone again. Reverend Michaels entered from the vestry, ascending to the pulpit with the measured dignity he brought to every service. He was a tall man, thin as a rail, with hands that gestured like birds in flight when he preached. Those hands clutched the pulpit edge now as he surveyed his congregation. "Brothers and sisters," he began, voice resonant in the simple wooden church. "This morning I feel called to speak on the nature of sin, not the obvious sins: theft, violence, blasphemy. No, I speak of the subtle sins, the sin of harboring iniquity, the sin of shielding wrongdoers from righteous judgment." Cole's jaw tightened. Around him, the congregation shifted, stealing glances in his direction. "The good book tells us," Reverend Michaels continued, opening his Bible with theatrical precision, "he that justifieth the wicked, and he that condemneth the just, even they both are abomination to the Lord." Proverbs chapter 17, verse 15. He looked up, and his gaze found Cole unerringly. "We must ask ourselves, are we men of principle, or do we compromise with evil because it wears a familiar face?" The sermon lasted 30 minutes, each word a carefully aimed dart. Michaels never mentioned Cole by name, never referenced Mara directly. He didn't need to. Every parable about misguided mercy, every warning about false compassion, landed with perfect clarity. When the brass bell rang the final toll, the congregation rose as one. The exodus was swift, orderly, and pointed. People streamed past Cole without a word, without a glance. He remained seated, waiting for the church to empty. Outside, through the windows, he saw them gathering, clusters of men talking in low voices, women whispering behind gloved hands. Marcus Webb stood at the center of the largest group, his silver-threaded hair gleaming in the October sunlight. Cole finally stood, moved down the aisle. Doc Mercer waited by the door. "That was quite a performance," the doctor said quietly. "Michaels always did have a gift for timing. More than timing. That was a coordinated effort. Webb's been working the congregation all week." Doc Mercer glanced toward the groups outside. "Emergency council meeting this afternoon. Word is they're planning to confront you. Let them come." "Cole," Doc hesitated, "I know what you're doing, and I respect it. But you need to understand what you're up against. Webb doesn't just have money. He has fear. People owe him so much they're terrified of crossing him. Fear's a poor foundation for a community." "Agreed. But it's effective." Doc Mercer touched Cole's arm. "If you need anything, a place to hide the woman, medical supplies, whatever, you come to me. I'm too old and too ornery to care what Webb thinks." "Thank you, Doc." "Don't thank me yet. This is just beginning." Cole walked home through streets that felt hostile, past houses where curtains twitched as he passed. Copper Ridge had been his town for 18 years. Now it watched him like a stranger. Mara was awake when he entered, dressed in one of Ellen's old calico dresses, dark blue with tiny white flowers. It fit reasonably well, though she'd had to take in the waist. She still wore the shawl over her face. "How was church?" she asked, though her tone suggested she already knew. "Illuminating." Cole hung his coat on the peg. "They're coming for us this afternoon. Council meeting. What will you do?" "Meet them. Let them say their piece. Then tell them to go to hell with my compliments." Mara laughed despite the tension. "Very diplomatic. Diplomacy's overrated." Cole moved to the stove, started coffee. "We need to accelerate our plans. Can't wait for them to box us in completely. What are you thinking?" Before Cole could answer, horses sounded outside, not the casual clip-clop of afternoon traffic, but the deliberate approach of men with purpose. Cole moved to the window. 6 riders sat in a line across his small yard. Marcus Webb at the center, flanked by council members August Larkin, Reverend Michaels, Floyd Sims, the telegraph operator, Clarence Hart, who owned the Mercantile, and Ben Sykes, cousin to the corrupt deputy marshal in Denver. All respectable men, all in Webb's pocket. "Stay inside," Cole told Mara. He stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind him. Afternoon sun backlit the riders, turning them into silhouettes against the bright sky. Cole descended the porch steps, stood with his hand resting on the white-painted post Ellen's work, from a summer when she'd insisted the house needed brightening. His palm pressed against the smooth wood, drawing strength from the memory. "Gentlemen," Cole said evenly, "this is irregular. Council meetings are usually held in the town hall. This isn't official business," Webb said. His horse shifted, and he controlled it with casual expertise. "This is personal concern. About your judgment, Sheriff. My judgment's fine. Is it?" Webb leaned forward in his saddle. "Because from where we sit, you've taken in a fugitive, a dangerous criminal wanted for murder in Denver. Show me the warrant." Webb smiled. "I have a telegram. That's enough for now. A telegram's not a legal document. And I've seen that telegram. Marcus? Wrong marshal's name. Wrong department designation. Anybody with sense would recognize it as a forgery." August Larkin, Tom's father, spoke up, a heavy-set man with a beard gone mostly gray. "You calling Marcus a liar?" "I'm calling that telegram false. Where it came from, I couldn't say." Cole's gaze never left Webb's face. "But I know fabricated evidence when I see it." "You're compromised," Reverend Michaels interjected, his preacher's voice carrying judgment. "You've allowed this woman into your home, into your private space. That shows a lack of moral clarity. What it shows is basic human decency, something this town seems to have forgotten." "We're giving you 48 hours, Webb said, his tone hardening. "Produce the woman. Let us verify her identity. Or resign your position. Those are your options. And if I refuse both, then we'll remove you, by force if necessary." Webb's smile was cold. "You're one man." "Cole, we're the town council, with the authority to appoint and dismiss law enforcement. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Cole looked at each man in turn. August Larkin couldn't hold his gaze. Reverend Michaels stared back with righteous certainty. The others watched with varying degrees of discomfort. Only Webb met his eyes without flinching predator to prey, already counting the kill. "I was elected sheriff by the people of this town," Cole said quietly. "Not appointed by you. You want me gone. Call an election. Otherwise, get off my property." "You have 48 hours, Webb repeated. He wheeled his horse, and the others followed. They rode back toward town in formation, dust rising in their wake. Cole stood on the steps until they disappeared. Then his knees nearly buckled, and he gripped the porch post to steady himself. His heart hammered against his ribs, adrenaline flooding through him like poison. The door opened. Mara stepped out, still veiled. "They'll be back," she said. "I know. With more than words next time." "I know that too." Cole turned to face her. "But we're not done yet. We still have 48 hours, and I intend to use every minute." Footsteps on the street made them both tense. But it was only one rider, Tom Larkin, young and uncomfortable on his bay mare. He dismounted at Cole's gate, removed his hat. "Sheriff," Tom said, "can we talk?" Cole glanced at Mara. She nodded and retreated inside. Tom climbed the porch steps slowly, as if approaching something dangerous. Up close. Cole saw the shadows under his eyes, the tension in his jaw. The young deputy looked like he hadn't slept. "My father's putting pressure on me," Tom said without preamble. "Says I should quit working for you. Says you're harboring a criminal and I'm complicit if I don't resign. Your father's entitled to his opinion. He's on the council. He's part of—" Tom stopped, swallowed hard. "I need to know something. Cole, that woman in there, is she really wanted for murder?" "No." "Then what's she wanted for?" "Telling the truth. Seeing something powerful men want buried." Cole met Tom's eyes. "She's a witness, not a criminal, and the people hunting her are the real murderers." Tom's hand moved to his deputy badge, fingers tracing its outline. "If I stay with you, my father will disown me. Maybe worse. Webb's been suggesting I helped you hide her. That I'm part of whatever conspiracy you're running. There's no conspiracy. Just an old sheriff trying to do right by someone who needs help. Is she worth it? Tom's voice cracked. Worth throwing away everything. Your job, your reputation, maybe your life. Cole thought about Mara's voice emerging from beneath that burlap sack. About the soft strength of her words. About truth that had been silenced for 6 months. Waiting for someone brave enough to listen. Yes, he said simply. She's worth it. Tom stood there for a long moment, badge glinting in the afternoon sun. Then, slowly, he unpinned it from his vest, held it out to Cole. I'm sorry, Tom whispered. I want to be brave like you, but I'm not. I'm just scared. Cole took the badge, felt its familiar weight in his palm. Being scared isn't weakness. Tom, it's honest. You do what you need to do. No judgment from me. Will you be all right alone? I've been alone before. Tom nodded, backed down the steps, remounted his horse. He looked back once, face twisted with guilt and shame, then rode away toward his father's ranch on the edge of town. Cole stood holding the deputy's badge as shadows lengthened across his yard. Inside, he heard Mara moving the soft sounds of a woman trying to make a borrowed house feel like home. 48 hours. It would have to be enough. Midnight brought fire. Cole woke to Copper's screaming, the high, terrified whinny of a horse trapped in smoke. He was out of the chair and through the door before full consciousness caught up. Winchester forgotten, thinking only of the animal he'd ridden for 12 years. The barn was already engulfed, flames licking up the hand-hewn timber walls, consuming the shake roof in sheets of orange fury. Sparks spiraled into the black sky like malevolent stars. The heat hit Cole like a physical blow as he ran across the yard. Cole! Mara's voice behind him, sharp with alarm. Stay back! He grabbed the tin water bucket from the well, soaked his shirt, wrapped it around his face, and plunged into the barn. Smoke choked him immediately. The interior was a hell of heat and noise, wood cracking, hay catching, the roar of fire devouring everything Cole had built over 20 years. Copper was in the back stall, rearing against the rope halter, eyes rolling white with terror. Cole stumbled forward, feeling his way through smoke, found the stall door, fumbled with the latch, his hands, slick with sweat, couldn't grip properly. The metal was already hot enough to burn. Easy, boy, easy. His voice came out hoarse, barely audible over the fire's roar. The latch finally gave. Copper lunged past him, bolting for the open door. Cole followed, lungs screaming for clean air. He emerged coughing, smoke blackened, shirt smoldering. Mara caught his arm, tried to support him, but he shook her off gently. Copper stood in the yard, trembling, but alive. The saddle, Cole rasped. My McClellan saddle. 20 years. Let it burn, Mara said firmly. You're alive. The horse is alive. That's what matters. But Cole stood watching as the barn collapsed in on itself, timbers groaning like dying things before crashing down in explosions of sparks. His tack, his winter hay supply, tools accumulated over 2 decades, hay fork, shovel, post-hole digger, all the implements of a man who'd thought he'd spend his old age working this small piece of land. Gone. All of it gone. Neighbors' windows lit up and down Ridge Street, but no one came out. No one offered water or help. They watched from behind curtains as Cole's barn burned to the ground, and their silence was more damning than any accusation. By the time the flames died to embers, dawn was graying the eastern sky. Cole stood in the ash-drifted yard, staring at the smoking ruin. That's when he saw it, a piece of paper weighted with a rock, pinned to his fence post. His hands shook as he unfolded it. The message was brief, written in a hand he recognized with sick certainty. Last warning. Give up the whore or lose everything. Tom Larkin's handwriting. The boy he'd trusted, trained, thought of almost as a son. The betrayal cut deeper than the fire had. Cole. Mara's voice was small, defeated. This is my fault. If I'd just Don't. He turned to her, saw her silhouette against the smoking ruins. This is Webb's doing. Tom's hand. But Webb's words. Don't take their evil on yourself. But your barn can be rebuilt. I've lost barns before. Built them again, too. He looked at the smoldering timbers, the still glowing embers that had been his winter hay. It's just wood and nails. What they're trying to take from you, your truth, your voice, your very existence, that's what really matters. Mara sank onto the porch steps, and after a moment, Cole joined her. They sat side by side, watching orange embers pulse in the darkness like malevolent heartbeats. Ash floated on the pre-dawn breeze, settling on their shoulders like cursed snow. I should leave, Mara whispered. Turn myself in. Stop this before they destroy you completely. And let them win. Let Webb silence the only witness to his crimes. Cole shook his head. No, we're past that point. Way past it. Then what do we do? Before Cole could answer, hoofbeats approached. He tensed, hand moving instinctively to where his Colt should be still inside, on the table. But the rider was alone, elderly, moving with the careful precision of someone navigating in darkness. Doc Mercer dismounted at the gate, medical bag in one hand. He took in the destroyed barn, Cole's smoke-blackened face, Mara's hunched form on the steps. Saw the fire from my window, Doc said. Figured you might need this. He climbed the porch, opened his bag, extracted a tin of medicinal salve. Beeswax and comfrey. Good for burns. I'm fine, Doc. You're burned and you're a damn fool. But I admire the fool part, so I'll help with the burned part. Doc knelt, took Cole's hands, examined them with professional efficiency. The palms were reddened, blistered in places where he'd grabbed the hot stall latch. Doc applied the salve with gentle competence, then wrapped the hands in clean cotton bandages. Someone do this deliberately, Doc asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. What do you think? I think Marcus Webb is escalating. Fires a message. Next time, it might be bullets. Doc finished the wrapping, looked up at Cole. You can't stay here anymore. Neither can she. Where else would we go? My place, for starters. I've got a spare room, and Webb wouldn't dare attack a doctor's house. Too many people need me alive. Doc glanced at Mara. Or we could get you out of Copper Ridge entirely. I know a man, old Samuel. Drives freight wagons. He owes me for setting his broken leg last winter. He could smuggle you to Denver, hidden in his cargo. Cole felt hope flicker for the first time since the fire. You think he'd do it? Samuel's been running a different kind of railroad for 30 years. Helped escape slaves before the war. Helps abused women now. He understands what it means to move precious cargo. Doc stood, brushed ash from his black coat. But you'd need to leave soon, tomorrow at the latest. The council's deadline is what? 36 hours from now. 24 hours, Cole corrected. They came yesterday afternoon. Even less time then. Doc looked at the smoking barn. They're not going to wait for the deadline. This proves that. They'll push harder, faster. You need to move while you still can. Mara stood, the shawl clutched tight around her face despite the growing dawn light. Why are you helping us? Doctor, you barely know me, and helping Cole could cost you everything, just like it's costing him. Doc was silent for a moment, his lined face thoughtful in the gray light. 10 years ago, Webb refused to pay medical bills for the Hernandez family. Poor miners. Couldn't afford my services. But I treated their sick daughter anyway. When I tried to collect from the fund Webb supposedly maintained for indigent care, he laughed. Said charity was for the deserving. And Mexicans didn't deserve anything. The girl, Cole asked quietly, died. Pneumonia. If they'd been able to afford medicine earlier. Doc's voice hardened. Webb has been crushing people for decades. Good people. Decent people who just needed a little help. So yes, Miss Brennan, I'll help you, because someone needs to stop that man before he destroys anyone else. The three of them stood in the ash-dusted yard as full dawn broke over Copper Ridge. The town was waking smoke from breakfast fires rising. The distant clang of the blacksmith's hammer starting its daily rhythm, normal morning sounds that felt surreal after the night's violence. I'll talk to Samuel today, Doc said. Get him to meet us tonight, here, after dark. We'll load you into his freight wagon among the regular cargo bolts of fabric, canned goods, whatever he's hauling to Denver. No one will think twice about a freight wagon leaving town. What about you, Cole? Mara asked. If I leave, you're still here, still vulnerable. I'll follow after. Make sure no one suspects Samuel's cargo. Then I'll ride hard, catch up before you reach Denver. Cole looked at his bandaged hands, flexed them experimentally. The pain was sharp, but bearable. Together, we'll bring this to the territorial marshal. The real one, not Webb's pocket version. And if Webb figures it out, if he stops the wagon, then we fight. Cole met her hidden eyes. But I'd rather fight on a road to Denver than wait here for them to pick us apart piece by piece. Doc nodded approval. Smart. Get to federal authority before local corruption can intervene. He packed his medical bag, prepared to mount his horse. I'll be back tonight with Samuel. Be ready to travel light, just yourselves and whatever evidence you have. The compass, Mara said. Peter Drummond's surveyor compass. That's our proof. Then guard it with your life. Doc swung into his saddle with the practiced ease of someone who'd been riding house calls for 40 years. And Cole, get some sleep. You look like death. Feel like it too. Doc rode away as the sun climbed higher, painting the destroyed barn in harsh morning light. The structure was completely gone, just a blackened footprint in the earth. A few standing timbers like the ribs of a giant skeleton. 20 years of work reduced to ash and memory. Cole felt Mara's hand slip into his bandaged one, her fingers cool and steady. I'm sorry, she whispered. Don't be. I've lost barns before. Built them again, too. He squeezed her hand gently, carefully. But what we're building now, the truth, justice. A chance for people like you and me to live without fear, that's worth any barn, worth any price. They stood together as the town came to life around them. As neighbors who'd known Cole for 18 years walked past his gate without stopping, without offering help, without acknowledging the fire that had nearly killed him. Cole had spent 2 decades believing in community, in the basic goodness of people working together. Now he understood that community could be corrupted just as easily as individuals. That fear was contagious. That silence in the face of evil was its own form of complicity. But standing there with Mara's hand in his, watching the sun burn away the last of the smoke, Cole also understood something else. Sometimes you had to let the old things burn before you could build something better. Sometimes destruction was just the first step toward restoration. And sometimes a dollar spent on saving one person's truth was worth more than a lifetime of comfortable lies. Come on, he said, leading Mara toward the house. Let's get cleaned up. We've got a long night ahead of us. Behind them, ash settled over the burned ground. In a few months, grass would grow through it. In a few years, you'd barely know a barn had stood there. But Cole would remember the night he chose truth over safety, justice over comfort, a woman's voice over a town's silence. Would remember, and would never regret it. Not for a single burning moment. Old Samuel arrived an hour before midnight, his freight wagon creaking down Ridge Street like a ghost from another era. The old man looked ancient in the lamplight weathered face seamed with lines deeper than creek beds, hands gnarled as oak roots, but eyes sharp as a hawk's. He'd been driving freight wagons since before Cole was born, and the stories whispered about him suggested he'd transported more than just dry goods over the years. Doc says you need passage to Denver, Samuel said without preamble. Quiet like. That's right. Cole helped him secure copper to the wagon's tailgate. The horse would follow behind, recovered enough from the fire to travel. Can you do it? Been doing it for 30 years. Sheriff? Moved packages on the Underground Railroad before the war. These days I move different cargo, but the principle's the same. Samuel's gaze found Mara, still veiled in the shadows of the porch. Ma'am, I'll get you there safe. That's a promise. They loaded quickly, Cole and Mara climbing into the wagon bed among crates stenciled with merchant names, bolts of calico and muslin, tins of canned peaches with paper labels, sacks of flour and cornmeal. Samuel arranged canvas tarps over them, creating a hidden space that smelled of dust and possibility. Don't move. Don't talk, Samuel instructed. If we get stopped, you're just cargo, nothing more. Darkness enfolded them as the wagon lurched into motion. Cole felt Mara's presence beside him in the cramped space, heard her breathing, felt the warmth of her body against his in the October cold. His bandaged hands throbbed with each jolt of the wagon, but the pain was distant, unimportant. They'd been traveling perhaps 30 minutes when the wagon slowed. Voices outside, official, demanding. Hold there, Samuel. Need to check your cargo. Tom Larkin's voice. Cole's jaw clenched. Check away, deputy. Samuel's tone was casual, unhurried. Just dry goods for Denver. Same as always. Step down. Let me look proper. The wagon shifted as Samuel climbed down. Cole heard footsteps circling, felt the wagon bed dip as someone climbed up. Through a gap in the canvas, he saw Tom's boots, the young deputy's hands pulling back tarps, moving crates. But the search was perfunctory, careless. Tom wanted to be able to say he'd searched, not actually find anything. After a few minutes, he jumped down. Looks fine, Tom said, but his voice carried shame. Sorry to delay you. Samuel, no delay at all, son. Just doing your job. The wagon resumed its journey, and Cole felt Mara's hand find his in the darkness. She squeezed once gratitude, relief, connection. He squeezed back. They traveled through the night and into dawn, stopping once at an abandoned mining camp where Samuel watered the horses and gave them hardtack biscuits from his supply. The camp was skeletal collapsed sluice, rusted pans, the bones of dreams that had died when the gold ran out. How many people have you moved? Mara asked Samuel as they rested. Stopped counting years ago. Hundreds, maybe. Folks running from slavery, from violence, from lies that would have destroyed them. The old man's eyes were distant, remembering. Always figured if I could help one person reach freedom, my life meant something. It means everything, Mara said softly. They reached Denver as afternoon sun painted the mountains gold. The city sprawled larger than Copper Ridge could ever imagine, brick buildings 3 stories high, streets crowded with wagons and pedestrians, the smell of industry and progress thick in the air. Samuel drove directly to the federal building on Larimer Street, a stern granite structure that housed the territorial marshal's office. Cole and Mara emerged from the wagon stiff, dusty, but alive. Marshal William Greer was a barrel-chested man with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much corruption to be shocked by more. He listened to their story in his oak-paneled office, occasionally making notes, his expression growing darker with each revelation. Mara Brennan, he said when they finished. I know that name. You're not wanted. Miss. You're listed as missing. Presumed kidnapped or dead. He shuffled through papers on his desk. But someone Marcus Webb, according to these reports, filed inquiries about a dangerous fugitive matching a description, nothing like you. He falsified everything, Mara said. Appears so. Greer's jaw tightened. And Deputy Marshal Sykes, my own deputy, has been covering for him, taking bribes, filing false reports. He stood, moved to the window. This corruption goes deeper than I thought. Can you stop him? Cole asked. Can and will. Greer turned back, and his expression was steel. Sheriff Hayden, I'm deputizing you as a federal officer. We're riding to Copper Ridge with warrants for Marcus Webb, Cleet Banner, and Stella Kane. Murder, fraud, conspiracy, kidnapping, enough charges to hang them all twice over. The marshal assembled a four-man team, seasoned officers who'd served in the war, men who understood how to enforce law without unnecessary violence. They rode out that evening, pushing hard through the night. Dawn was breaking when they reached Copper Ridge. The timing felt deliberate, Cosmic arriving at first light just as Cole had stood in the depot shadows 2 weeks ago, watching Dutch unload his human cargo. Full circle, but heading toward justice this time. They took Marcus Webb at the bank, emerging for his morning routine. He saw the federal badges, saw Cole riding with them, and all the color drained from his face. No resistance, no denials. Just the hollow-eyed stare of a man watching his empire crumble. Cleet Banner was sleeping off whiskey at the saloon. He reached for his gun. Old habits dying hard, but Greer's deputy was faster. Banner's weapon clattered to the floor unfired. Stella Kane was at Webb's house, packing frantically. She'd sensed the end coming. The marshals found Peter Drummond's surveyor notes in her trunk, evidence she'd kept as insurance, perhaps, or trophy. Either way, it sealed her fate. By noon, all three were in chains, loaded onto the Denver-bound stage under armed guard. The town gathered to watch, silent, stunned, beginning to understand how thoroughly they'd been deceived. Cole stood in the town square, Mara beside him. For the first time since he'd paid that $1, she'd removed the shawl completely. Her face was revealed in full sunlight, ordinary, weary, beautiful, marked by a thin white scar along her left cheekbone that told a story of survival, not monstrosity. Doc Mercer approached first, nodded to them both with quiet approval. Then, slowly, others came. Martha Henderson, weeping apologies. The Colby brothers, shamefaced but sincere. Even Reverend Michaels, who'd preached against harboring sinners, now asked forgiveness for his blindness. Tom Larkin came last, deputy badge in his trembling hand. "Sheriff, I'm sorry. I was weak. I let my father's fear become my own. I don't deserve to wear this." Cole took the badge, felt its familiar weight. Then he pinned it back on Tom's vest himself. "Courage isn't never being afraid," Cole said quietly. "It's doing right even when you're terrified. You're young. You'll learn. Keep the badge. Earn it properly this time." Tom's eyes filled with tears. He nodded, unable to speak. Mara stepped forward then, addressing the gathered crowd, her voice soft but weighted with truth carried across the square. "You were willing to believe a lie because it was easier than investigating. That's how good people become accomplices to evil. But you can choose differently now. You can demand truth. You can question authority. You can be brave enough to stand with the persecuted instead of the powerful." Silence greeted her words. Then, one by one, heads nodded. Acceptance. Understanding. Shame transforming slowly into resolve. The trials took 3 months. Webb's ledger, recovered from his bank safe, contained decades of fraud, 57 documented cases of fake land sales, embezzlement, intimidation. Peter Drummond's surveyor compass, with its meticulous coordinates and notes, became the cornerstone of the prosecution. Stella Kane testified against Webb in exchange for a reduced sentence. Banner refused to talk, but the evidence was overwhelming. All three were convicted. Webb got 20 years hard labor. Banner and Kane got 10 each. Copper Ridge began the slow process of healing. The town council was dissolved and reformed, Doc Mercer as head. August Larkin replaced by Martha Henderson. They voted to return Cole to his sheriff position with a formal apology and a modest raise he didn't want but accepted with grace. Mara was offered her teaching position back. She accepted, moving into the small house attached to the schoolhouse, determined to educate the next generation to think critically, to question, to be brave. 6 months after the arrests, the town held a barn raising at Cole's property. 50 people came sawing, hammering, rebuilding what fire had destroyed. By sunset, a new barn stood where the old one had burned, larger and stronger than before. That evening, Mara came for Sunday supper as she did most weeks, pot roast and potatoes. Apple pie made from fruit Doc Mercer had brought. They ate at the small table by the window, comfortable in the silence that comes from shared trauma and earned trust. After supper, they went outside. Cole had saved one thing, a small apple sapling, roots wrapped in burlap, purchased from the traveling nurserymen who passed through each spring. "Where the barn burned," Cole said, carrying the tree to the scorched ground now softening with new grass. "Something good growing from ash." They dug together, planted the sapling, packed earth around its roots. Cole poured water from the bucket, watched it soak into the soil. In a few years, this tree would bear fruit. In 10 years, it would provide shade. In 20, children would climb its branches. "You ever regret it?" Mara asked, standing beside him as the sun set. "That dollar you paid." Cole thought about everything that had come after the loss. The pain, the fire, the fight. Thought about a woman's voice emerging from beneath burlap. About truth that had waited 6 months to be heard. About a town learning, slowly, to choose courage over comfort. "Best dollar I ever spent," he said. Mara smiled, and her face, no longer hidden, no longer defined by scars real or fabricated, was radiant in the fading light. They stood together as stars emerged, as the young apple tree settled into its new earth, as Copper Ridge prepared for another night of honest sleep under honest stars. Some things were worth burning down to rebuild properly. Some people were worth every risk, and some truths, no matter how long they took to surface, were worth whatever price justice demanded. Cole Hayden had paid $1 for a woman hidden under a sack. He'd received a future in return, and in the arithmetic of courage, that was a bargain beyond measure. Sheriff Cole Hayden's story reminds us that true courage lies not in dramatic heroics, but in standing beside the vulnerable when everyone else turns away. He saw past the fabricated evidence, the convenient lies, and the community's fear to recognize Mara's humanity. His dollar wasn't just payment, it was an investment in justice, when justice seemed impossibly expensive. The moral at the heart of this tale resonates across generations. Family isn't always blood, and gratitude grows from the soil of sacrifice. Cole lost his barn, his reputation, nearly his life, but gained something infinitely more valuable. He became part of a chosen family built on truth rather than convenience. Mara, Doc Mercer, even young Tom Larkin learning courage, they formed bonds stronger than any biological tie because they were forged in the fire of shared conviction. We often speak of gratitude during comfortable times, but the deepest thanksgiving comes from those dark moments when someone believes in us despite the evidence arrayed against us. When someone pays the price, whatever that price may be, to defend our truth. Mara was silenced, hidden, accused of crimes she never committed. Her face was used against her, her voice stolen, her very existence criminalized. Have you ever been wrongly accused or judged based on appearance rather than truth? How did you find your voice again, and who stood beside you when others turned away?